All right, we're on part 2 of President Washington. So we just talked about the Bill of Rights and his cabinet, and so now we're talking about the Judiciary Act of 1789. In the Judiciary Act, Washington signs it into law. And what it does is it creates the federal court system. And of course, the federal court system, you've got the Supreme Court of the United States at the very, very top. They deal with any constitutional issue for the United States. So if you think that a state is violating your First Amendment, then the Supreme Court of the United States might hear that case, okay? They don't hear every case because there are tons of cases every year that get appealed up to them. They only hear cases that the justices agree that they want to hear. It's the rule of 4. If 4 people agree that they want to hear the case, then it goes to the Supreme Court. They agree to hear it, okay? They issue a writ of certiorari, and all it is like, well, come here, we'll hear your case. Now, below the Supreme Court of the United States is the appellate or the circuit court. And so this is just appeals court. And then below them is the district court. So here in North Carolina, we follow the same structure as most states do. You have a Supreme Court in in North Carolina, and it's the North Carolina Supreme Court. Below the North Carolina Supreme Court that only deals with North Carolina Constitution. Every state has a constitution, so do we. We have our appellate court, Court of Appeals. Below that we have a Superior Court, and then we have a District Court. District is your lowest court here in North Carolina. Remember I told you they deal with like misdemeanors, low dollar legal stuff, civil suits, less than $10,000. Superior Court is going to be felonies and anything over $10,000. Your appeals court is going to hear anything from these courts that maybe there was a judicial proceeding error, okay? And then, of course, you can always go up to the North Carolina Supreme Court. But most states follow this, and we pretty much all follow the federal, guides, the federal structure. You know, every state has an executive. They call them governors. Every state has a legislative branch. In North Carolina, we call it the General Assembly. They make our laws. And then every state has a court system. And now there you get maybe a little bit here or there that's different. Like we added the Superior Court here for felonies. But, you know, most states follow the federal guideline there. Now, why Washington is in office, we have a war that breaks out between England and France. Because why not? These two countries are constantly fighting, and at the moment, France is fighting for their freedom. They are actually in the middle of a revolution. They want to be a republic. We did it, okay? We became a republic, a democracy, and so they look at us and they're like, you know what? They threw off a mean king, a king who wasn't paying attention to them, a king who didn't care about them. Let's overthrow our king and queen that's doing the same thing. And so they're in the middle of a revolution, and England doesn't like that. That is too close to them. And the French Revolution is a little crazy, too. And crazy has a tendency to spread. So, England and France are at war. England tells America, hey, side with us. You know, we're similar. I mean, we speak English. We have all the English customs still. We just happen to call ourselves Americans. France goes, you guys remember it was us that helped you during your revolution, so you should help us. Washington judges both of these things. And he's like, you know, I don't like option 1, and I don't like option 2. I'm going to make myself a third option. We're going to be neutral. So he issues the Proclamation of Neutrality. And basically what this does is it says to the world, the United States will take no side in conflicts. We're not going to take your side, France. We're not going to take your side, England. And most presidents for a really long time actually follow this. America is not an involved nation at the beginning of our history. We are actually a neutral country. When other countries are fighting, we're like, that's not none of our business. That's between you guys. And so this actually works for a while for us, you know. Here's why it works. We're a baby nation. We just got out of a really bad war, the American Revolution. We're not ready to fight another big war with the big boys of Europe. We need to build up our army. We need to build up our economy. We need to build up our society. You know, bang, bang doesn't kill people. The gun kills the people, okay? So this is where he is actually smart, and most presidents pretty much follow it. Okay. Now, Hamilton's economic plan is the next thing that gets tackled by Washington. Hamilton's his Secretary of Treasury, and Hamilton is looking at our economy. He's like, God, it sucks. And he wants to fix it. So he fixes it by creating an economic plan. He's the Secretary of Treasury. He advises the president on this. So he says, look, some of our states are drowning in Revolutionary War debt. You know, you're looking at like 22 million in states' debt. So every state had a different amount, but you had 13 states, and between all those states, it's 22 million. And the federal government's like somewhere around like 60 million, which isn't that bad because the federal government has 13 people to help them out with it. The states only have themselves to help themselves out with their debt. So what he decides to do is the federal government will take all that debt. New York, Philadelphia, all those areas, you get relieved of your debt, okay? And you know, it's Pennsylvania, not Philadelphia, okay? So he says, you guys get no debt. We're going to zero you out, and the federal government is going to help you pay your debt. Then he enacts tariffs and taxes on items. So what tariffs are just taxes on foreign or imported goods, and he does this because if you make foreign goods more expensive, people will buy American-made goods because that's the cheaper good now at the shelf. The excise tax is the tax on something that's exact. It's on an exact item, like whiskey. Okay? So now that you got a huge debt, he needs to raise revenue to pay off that huge debt, and he does it through taxes and tariffs. You know, when the North hears this plan, the North is all about the states' debts being wiped out. They're the ones that have the biggest debt because in the American Revolutionary War, they're the ones that are getting hit the hardest. Some of the southern states are really upset about this, assuming states' debt, because some of them have paid off their debts. Some of them have no debt left. And so you're telling someone who has no debt that they now have to pay everybody else's debt. And people get a little angry about that, particularly when it comes to money. And then you tell the Southerners, we're going to increase taxes on products, on those cheap foreign goods you guys have got addicted to, and now you're going to go to the store and you're going to pay more for the item. And why is because even though the foreign good is going to be jacked up, the American good was already jacked up on price, and they're not going to lower it because it's the bottom line. They still need to make enough money for their factories or their business to grow. So the South hates these tariffs. They don't like the assuming of the debt, and they don't like the tariff part either. Then he wants to create a bank. And why he creates the bank is he says it is necessary and proper to carry out the economy. Okay. And remember, this necessary and proper clause is one of our clauses of our U.S. Constitution. It's in there. And it's a implied power. And how you get implied powers is you use a power that's explicit, that's actually written. So in the U.S. Constitution, there is this written power that says the government has the power to coin currency. Okay. Well, coining currency, money goes to a bank, money comes from a bank, and that's how you get an implied power. Okay. So he has the ability to now create the bank. Thanks to this plan, Jefferson gets really upset. This debt thing, he doesn't really care for it. He doesn't care for the tariffs, but he certainly hates the bank. He thinks that the bank is a gross abuse of this necessary and proper clause. And so Jefferson kind of leads the southern states against Hamilton's economic plan. But here is the actual debt that the country had in 1790. And once this plan, and it does get passed, you see by 1810, he's actually kind of got it all paid off. I mean, this plan actually does work. But also Southerners aren't stupid. This part is helping the North build up their factories. They are manufacturers. They just don't have factories like they're going to have over there in England yet. They're getting there. This is helping the North, and the bank's going to help the North. So the South feels that this man, Hamilton, has completely eliminated them in this plan. Like, they're not getting any help. That's how they feel. And so, thanks to this creation of this bank, we're going to have a two-party system created. Jefferson's going to lead enough Southern representatives in enough Southern states to say, we don't like this plan, we don't like you, Hamilton. And Washington, he is just throwing his hands up in the air because he's got two secretaries who are fighting over this creation of the bank. Now, they're not throwing fists, but they are certainly very aggressive in their arguments. So now we get the creation of the two-party system. It's over the interpretation of the U.S. Constitution. Can you create a bank? And Hamilton believed that absolutely could because of the implied powers. Jefferson says there's no way you can create the bank. It is absolutely illegal. But both argue their case to Washington, and Washington does side with Hamilton. He thinks that it is what's best for the nation. Okay? Jefferson is upset. Jefferson resigns. Okay? He doesn't want to be a part of President Washington's office anymore. He doesn't want to do it. So, but remember, Jefferson and Hamilton are extremely intelligent men, and sometimes they just have too big of personalities to coexist. And so you kind of see these two people and not backing down, and they don't back down, and Washington really picks Hamilton's side. The plan goes through, and the economy does stabilize. When you look at this two-party system, here is the election of 1796, and in 1796 you've got John Adams, who is a Federalist, because this is the party that Hamilton creates. And you got the Democrat Republicans, who are being led by Jefferson. This is the political party he creates, vying for the presidency in 1796. Previously, we've only had a person running, not political parties. Now you have political parties running to be president. And so when you look at this electoral vote, Jefferson here wins 49%. In Federalist, John Adams wins 51%. I mean, this is not a huge victory. This is the division that the two-party system created. So here's some things that you should know about the two-party system. Federalists are the key people you should know. Alexander Hamilton and John Adams, they're buddy-buddy. Okay? And whoever is their opposite is going to be your Democrat-Republican. The opposite of Hamilton and Adams is Democrat-Republicans, Jefferson and Madison. How the Federalists look at the Constitution is loose interpretation. If you can dream it, you can do it. They believe in implied powers. The Democrat-Republicans believe in a strict interpretation of the Constitution. If it is not written, you cannot do it. They are not dreamers like that. They believe that if it's not written, you cannot do it. They are very literal with the interpretation of the Constitution. Federalists typically live in the North. I mean, if you look at Hamilton's economic plan, look at all the things that it really did do. It helped the North. When you look at the geography, where you would find Democrat-Republicans, they're southern and in the west. So you see farmers, you see plantation owners. Same thing with the Federalists. The Northerners tend to be merchants and businessmen. So that geography, their jobs, their occupations, they go hand in hand. Now, the Federalists, they 100% approve the bank, and the Democrat-Republicans don't want the bank. They 100% not approved. Now, the Federalists believe that the future of this nation rested in factories, and that is why they're okay with Hamilton's economic plan. I mean, other than he's also their creator, and they love the guy. Democrat-Republicans do not believe that the strength of this nation is in factories. They believe it is an agrarian or farming agricultural environment. Now, you have to understand, okay, look back at colonial America. 9 out of 10 colonists were farmers. So they just feel like this is what's going to keep going on. As a matter of fact, when Jefferson becomes president, he actually will go along and still believe this. Jefferson believed that there was so much land that we would never have conflict over land here in America. Now, next, look at the two-party system and all these elections. Election of 1800, the Revolution. Jefferson wins 53% of the electoral votes. Adams wins 47. Okay, this is not huge numbers to win by. Election of 1824. You got John Quincy Adams, this guy's son. John Adams has a son. This is his eldest son, his namesake. He wins the presidency, but he wins the presidency with a very, very narrow win. Matter of fact, he actually kind of loses in the Electoral College, but he is chosen to be the president. We're going to look at it as called a corrupt bargain that's going to go on. At least that's what this guy Jackson's going to claim. But you can see you have plenty of people running here, and look how divided they are in the electoral votes. And then even look at the popular vote, you and I voting. Election of 1876, it's worse. It's 50-50 right here. This is actually a tie for the presidency. And whenever